turn our attention to some specifics and start with weight management and nutrition. So we're joined by Adjunct Professor William Evans, who's a clinical psychologist at the John Walton Muscular Dystrophy Research Centre, Newcastle University. Dr. Jarod Wong, who's the Senior Clinical Lecturer and Honorary Consultant Paediatric Endocrinologist at the University of Glasgow, and our patient representative, Lisa Kuhwald.
Thank you. One small correction. I'm a professor of human nutrition at the University of California at Berkeley. So, thank you very much, and it's a real honor to be here, and thankful to Duchenne UK for the invitation and for their support of our research. So, my task, my research has been in a broad array of different types of patients, specifically and mostly in aging. And one of the questions that we had is, how can we measure how much muscle is in the human body? You would think that should be fairly straightforward. Muscle is one of the largest, if not the largest tissue in the body, and yet there was, and still remains, no real clinical way to measure how much muscle you have in your body. So my colleague and I at Cal Berkeley invented a new method, which is completely and totally non-invasive, and it relies on the amount of creatine in your body. And 98% of all the creatine in your body is in muscle. And so our idea was that we can tag that creatine. We give a patient a small pill, capsule, and we collect a urine sample 2 days later, and we measure the end product of that capsule, and we know exactly how much muscle you have. It really is quite astonishing. It's completely non-invasive. We've now put it into more than 6,000 people. Our oldest is 103. Our smallest is 2 kilograms. We were funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to validate this method in infants and children. We've looked at pediatric cancer patients. And what I'll talk to you today is some of the research that we've done in Duchenne. So first of all, I want to say that the typical measurement that most people do in the field is they measure what's called lean body mass. You may have heard lean body mass suggested as a surrogate for muscle mass, but what I'll show you here is that it really isn't. So this is a graph of almost 1,300 very old men, and you can see the dark blue is muscle, the light blue is non-muscle lean, and what we typically measure as fat-free mass or lean body mass is both of those things together, which is highly variable. And so for years and years, we've been measuring lean body mass, and it turns out that lean body mass is not associated with many outcomes. It's not associated with health-related outcomes, especially in older people. When we started looking at DMD patients, we could see that, for example, percentage of muscle mass is quite low, that is muscle mass divided by body weight, compared to healthy controls. Percentage of lean body mass is also low, and percentage of fat is quite high. So I want to get back to that because we were and so these are some of the data that we've shown in old people. And what I just want to show you here is we measure what's called functional muscle mass. This is in a group of almost 1,500 very old men. And what we can see is the amount of muscle that they have is strongly associated with their ability to stand up out of a chair, their strength, their what's called the short physical performance battery, and how fast they can move. And the measurement of lean body mass was not related to any of these outcomes. So for the very first time, we have a measurement that is non-invasive and that we can use in essentially any patient population. So we were very fortunate One of our clinical sites was Dr. Gugeri at Newcastle. We had 3 clinical sites. We measured about 100 patients with Duchenne from age 4 to 24. So in this case, we used not only very young patients, but we decided that we would include as many older patients as we possibly could. And so one of the things that we noticed here is that the decline in muscle mass certainly changes with age. So when we measure muscle mass, what you can see here, these are our younger patients, these are our 9 to 12-year-olds, these are the 13 to 17-year-olds, and these are the 18 to 24-year-olds. Obviously, this maybe is no surprise. If we look at young, healthy people, we see that the curve is just exactly the opposite. The amount of muscle mass increases with advancing age. We also were able to show that irrespective of age, the amount of functional muscle mass that these boys and young men had is strongly related to their strength. This is a measurement of strength right here, and this is the so-called NSAA score. We can see that muscle mass divided by body weight or percent muscle mass is strongly associated with how they can perform daily activities. But the one that I just want to show you that is really astonishing to us and is the basis of our next projects. When we look at the boys and young men in this study that could walk or not walk, we separated them into ambulatory and non-ambulatory. And as been previously reported, obviously there's an age here. Obviously the non-ambulatory are older. The non-ambulatory are heavier. The ambulatory have more muscle mass. But when we look at percentage of muscle mass, this one right here, we see a pretty astonishing threshold right here. Right around 20% muscle, that's muscle divided by body weight, there seems to be a threshold for ability to walk. And it's something that we didn't expect to see, but is actually quite astonishing. The potential threshold of percent muscle mass for ambulatory ability. And so when we think about that has a lot of implications, because it's the ratio of muscle mass to body weight. If we can't increase muscle mass, how can we maintain a higher percentage of muscle? The only way to do that is to control the amount of fat. And in talking with parents, the increasing amount of fat that their boys get is a real problem. And talking with some parents, their boys develop metabolic syndrome, and sometimes they develop diabetes. And so not only do they have to deal with the disease itself, but the manifestations of increased body fat. So our idea here is to potentially control this to maintain a higher percentage of muscle mass by controlling the amount of fat. And our hope is that we can use this new generation of anti-obesity drugs, because I think that there's no patient population that could benefit more from a GLP-1 receptor agonist than a patient with Duchenne. So in summary, decreasing muscle mass divided by body weight is strongly associated with ambulatory ability. This was something that came out of our research that I didn't expect to see. The best strategy for maintaining or increasing percentage of muscle mass is to focus on decreasing fat mass. That has to be a priority here to maintain that higher percentage of muscle mass. Increasing percentage of fat is also associated with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes that many of these patients develop aside from their Duchenne. Weight loss or maintenance must focus on dietary intake, I am a professor of human nutrition. We've done a lot of studies looking at weight loss. There are a number of weight loss strategies that I think that everybody should be familiar with. I like the idea of maintaining or decreasing fat intake. That's one important way to do that. And the increased consumption of high-quality protein and complex carbohydrate is another one. But I also think that the potential for GLP-1 receptor agonist drugs to decrease appetite, control body weight, and postpone the loss of ambulation and prevent insulin resistance should be a high priority. So I'll be happy to answer questions later on, but I just wanted to show you some of our incredible results, and hopefully that we'll be continuing on with this line of research. So thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Kuhwald and I'm the patient representative on the nutrition working group, and I have a son Felix with Duchenne who is now 15, and I was really keen to support, I'm not sure what I do, Jarod. I was really keen to support this working group because I think it's where patient experience and clinical expertise can really come together, and nutrition make it a real core part of the overall Duchenne management. So a brief overview of what I've sort of struggled with. I'm a mum of 4 boys, and to be honest, cooking isn't really one of my fortes. And I think the daily question of that's asked numerous times in our house, what's for tea, is a real struggle. And I think to give them, make sure they've got healthy, balanced meals that meets their expectations and desires has been quite difficult for me. So at the moment, now Felix is 15, he's non-ambulant, but he does really love food. He loves going out to restaurants, and it's become a real social part of his life. It's where he meets family and friends, and I think it's been a real I find it a real struggle between like sort of health and happiness for him. And I think when he was younger it was a lot easier, and I remember after diagnosis one of the first things I did was to speak to a nutritionist, and at that point it gave me some real control in a time when everything was very, very overwhelming. But I think as Felix has grown older and he's a little bit more vocal, should I say, I've found that a lot more difficult. So also I think once a boy is in the chair and their energy needs are a lot less, that becomes a lot harder. And I think the opportunity as opportunities for him to do other things has become less. Even simple things like going to people's houses, he's found that a lot more difficult now. He's in a power chair and things. So his social life has just become a lot more like where we're going tomorrow, or which cafe are we going to after our walk, sort of thing. So I wanted to try and give him more ownership of his own nutrition. So we started by joining the trial in Glasgow, and I think it was a really positive experience. It's a nice day out in Glasgow, a day off school. They get to wear an Apple Watch for a week after. So I think really for Felix it was a bit of a no-brainer. But I think the aim of the trial is to get some real data from patients, and to be able to give us back as families some real good resources of what can help and to support. So you can get involved, and there are lots of Zoom online meetings that you can just join and give your opinions or your concerns. But also you can go and join the trial in Glasgow. It's still open, and I think particularly non-ambulant boys are looking forward to try and join the trial. But Jarod is here and he will go through everything with you and more information. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm going to start by saying weight management matters. Weight management matters because of a whole range of health issues associated with excess weight in Duchenne. But in 2021, we actually did a parent survey and asked parents, but also by proxy reporting from parents, the opinion of boys with Duchenne of the steroid side effects that they were most concerned about. And guess what? The boys said that excess weight was the side effect of steroid they were most concerned about. And in a patient-centered environment of delivering clinical care, we need to prioritize our patients' concerns, and I think this is therefore important because weight management does matter. So Duchenne UK and its partners have been very interested to take on the patient's concern of management of nutrition and also management of excess weight, and this is one of the working groups that I had the pleasure to co-lead with funding from Alex's Wish, Joining Jack and Duchenne UK, and the work largely is actually led by Dr. Laurie Cave, where we have convened and finalized a national nutrition and weight management guidance, which you will hear a little bit about today in my talk, but also tomorrow Laurie will talk a little bit more about the nutritional guidance. And this is our roadmap, and those of you who've been in this meeting the last couple of years have seen that we started at the first New Horizon meeting. We started the project where we convene a group of dietitians, neuromuscular clinicians, and also endocrinologists. And we looked through the literature, we listened to patients, we surveyed clinicians, we also adopted some of the work that's happening at the international level via the Optimized DMD consortium, where I'm heavily involved with. And hurrah, at the end of last year, we have actually agreed on these national consensus via a very robust process of a Delphi process. And Laurie and we are now working hard to actually write and publish this guidance, but you will soon hear some of these guidance in different shape and form. We're planning to seek endorsement from this guidance from the British Society of Pediatric Endocrinology and Diabetes, and also the British Dietetic Association. And we will, of course, work with Duchenne Care UK to submit these for NICE for curation, and we're hoping to submit for publication sometime this year. These are just a highlight of the areas that we'll be tackling in these guidance. It will give more detailed guidance on how we monitor growth and also excess weight in these boys. It will give some nutritional guidance, but also accepting that we have extremely limited information on the nutritional needs of boys with Duchenne, and hence there's actually research that runs alongside this working group. We're also giving some examples of the type of dietetic service and support that should be in neuromuscular services. We will give much more detailed information on monitoring and also managing complications of excess weight. And we are giving some guidances on medical management of excess weight, which I think absolutely need to be considered at least in a very small subset of these individuals at this stage. So lots of people want to know what we're saying in this guidance, particularly in drug treatment of excess weight. And one of the drugs that a lot of us may have heard of is this drug called metformin, which is actually a drug used for treatment of type 2 diabetes. You might have had your grannies or elderly people on metformin. It is not a weight loss drug. There is very limited information in Duchenne, with some information that suggests that at its best, it will just stabilize weight gain. We suggest that it can be considered in boys with Duchenne with significant obesity, particularly with what we call metabolic complications. And I think that's an important step because right now, very, very few clinicians are actually prescribing metformin. So in time, we hope this will filter through to clinical teams. And of course, a lot of us over the last year or two would have heard of these weight loss drugs or the GLP analogs, and Mounjaro, Ozempic, the different names. Now, the first thing is that there is absolutely a role in some of these boys where there is significant obesity, particularly with complications. It can be prescribed in the pediatric population from the age of 12, but the issue is that in Duchenne, we do not have any published research in this area, and this absolutely needs to be changed. And I think we're having conversations within the community and with Duchenne UK. What we've said is that if there is significant obesity, the word morbid obesity I actually dislike, right? It's actually that threshold based on the UK growth chart with complications from age 12 that can be used in the pediatric setting. And we say that clinicians could consider that because there are potential side effects of the use of these drugs that I think we need to consider in the Duchenne population. So that just gives you some highlights of what the guidance will say. So Lisa has already talked about some of the other work of the working group. We have actually started some online focus groups on nutritional discussion and advice. And these will run all throughout this year several times with these themes. And look out for these dates and look out for information on Duchenne UK website and social media. And we're also piloting a new eating and neurodiversity online focus group together with Chloe Geegan. But as part of this working group, what's unique as well is that we are co-creating resources of information in this area with you, and we really need your help. We have already heard from some of you through surveys and also from interviews of the kind of information you would like. And our next step now is actually trying to develop these resources, but we actually want to co-develop them with you, and particularly the young people with DMD as well. And there are some online focus group, and I believe you're in the Northwest, you will be invited to Alex's house soon. I'm not opening your door. And the idea is that we're also hoping to develop a recipe bank, and that's going to be our work forward. And we're hoping that there will also be online group sessions for clinicians so we can empower clinicians to deliver this. So briefly, just to talk about the research you can be involved with. I've already mentioned that we do not know the specific energy needs of boys with Duchenne, and we also want to work with you to co-create some of these resources. So the Nutrient D study is it's a single visit research study. It's not a trial. It aims to really measure the caloric needs of boys with Duchenne using different methods. We are looking for this information leaflet on the Duchenne Care UK table, but please do join because we do need your help, and we're particularly looking for non-ambulant but also ambulant boys. And there's some information that you can get in touch. So for the developing information resources, these are some of the opportunities to be involved with. And finally, weight management does matters, and I think this is probably a working group that I'm nervous about taking on. Alex actually talked to me probably a couple of years ago to ask me to take on this working group. I am not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. I'm really proud of where we got to, and I think there was a eureka moment on a treadmill one day when I realized that actually weight management is extremely difficult for boys with Duchenne. We gave them a drug which increases appetite, and we tell them not to exercise intensively, and it gets to a point that actually they can't exercise. So we're actually telling them to fight physiology. Care is sporadic and sketchy and patchy, and I know some boys and some families don't actually have the kind of empathetic conversations with clinicians. As someone who struggled with my weight all my life, it took that 2 seconds on a treadmill to realize that maybe I can be involved in something that can actually change the experience for at least one patient slightly. Is this going to revolutionize nutritional care tomorrow? Perhaps not, but I think our intention of the working group is that it is slightly better, at least for one boy and one family with Duchenne in the future. Thank you.